welcome back to Get Down to Business. I am so excited to be joined by Robert Clinkenbeard, who is the CEO of the Radix Group. And I'll let our listeners guess where Robert is from once we start our conversation. So I'm not going to leave with his where he was born and raised, but he is a serial entrepreneur, an author, a senior leader, and a four-time Ironman. So Robert Clinkenbeard, welcome to Get Down to Business.
Yeah, thanks very much, Shalom. Really nice to meet you.
It's great to have you. So again, this will be fun, and I want our listeners to get a hold of me through my website. You could put your guesses in of where Robert Clinkenbeard is from. We'll probably end up covering that in our conversation. So Robert, you wear many hats. You are an Ironman, but you are also, as we said, the CEO of the Radix Group. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm now a business coach. I started up my coaching firm 3 years ago after I sold my business. So I had a large commercial landscape company and a real estate company in Arizona, and sold that back in 2016, and then worked for a couple of years for the parent company and decided I didn't enjoy working for other people. So I moved into doing business coaching and scaling up. So now I've been doing coaching individual clients. I have some peer groups. I enjoy helping others. I like making impact on other people, especially business owners.
So you are a man of many hats and many titles. We've covered a couple of them already, and I know, as we said, you are very athletic. You've participated in rugby. You've played rugby. You've probably participated in some tournaments. Who knows what? But you're an athlete. So where do those hats collide? Where does your athletic and maybe that competitive spirit tie in with your business experience?
I mean, that's part of the reason why I wrote my book. I've always grown up playing sports. It was started off with football or soccer, and then went into rugby. And as I start to get a little bit older, my body starts to suffer a little bit. So I went into running, doing some triathlons, and my dad has written a lot of books, and I just had this idea one day. How do the two correlate between competitive sports and then in business? And I started to write a book about roadmaps and being disciplined, and so that was really the start of that whole journey. And I've just been on that on my soapbox per se for the last few years talking about that.
Well, I'm glad you are on that soapbox. Your motto at your company, at the Radix Group, is cultivate business growth through personal growth. So if you don't mind, let's get personal for a moment. You've been on a journey. You've talked a little bit about it over the past few minutes. You've been on that personal journey. How has your own experiences led itself to how you work with companies and individuals, and maybe share a couple of examples of people, success stories that you've been able to have?
No, absolutely. I think probably started when I first joined the organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO. I felt as though I was decent in business, but I quickly found out that I was nowhere near. I was making too many mistakes in business. So once I joined that organization, then I was just surrounded by other business owners who were not only having their own business challenges, but also personal challenges. So it really opened up my eyes. I really did need to be more well-rounded in how I became a better personally, better father, husband, and then better in business as well. So almost like working on those three different dimensions. And I think just being part of that group, and then just opening in my eyes, reducing my ego a little bit, and just being open to being worked on.
Absolutely. And again, chatting with Robert Clinkenbeard. And Robert, you have you co-founded one of the largest landscape companies in the Southwest region of the United States back in 2001. I know you have since sold that $20 million company, and now you have several franchises, multiple real estate investments, and as we just said, the largest peer group facilitation company in the United States. So since you had over 350 employees, and I'm curious, what are some of the principles, what are some of the lessons for our listeners that they can take away in the week ahead to put into practice?
I think the main principles needs to start with people, surrounding yourself with the right people. Again, I felt as though I knew it all, and I knew all my clients, but I quickly found that we were beginning to lose jobs. I was less in touch. So I felt as though the first thing I needed to do was to bring the right people, surround myself with the right people in the company. So that was a journey over a year, 2 years to bring on the right people, going through the right recruitment tactics. And then once they were on board, making sure they're being onboarded correctly, they realized the things they should be doing correctly. What are some of the KPIs to make them successful? And then, set them up for success, give them all the tools they need, and almost treat their own branch as their own business. I just provide the coaching and tools and help they need to be successful. So, I eventually got to those employees that became senior leaders in the company, and they were instrumental in getting my company to that next level. So we were nearly up to 400 employees. We were in multiple states. But if it wasn't for the people around me, especially those middle senior managers, then there's no way I could have done that myself.
Wow. It's all about the people for sure. And we're going to have to squeeze in a very quick break. But final question for now is, how were you able to train 20 plus hours a week, but still run a $20 million business?
People, getting the right people in place. So they took a lot of the weight off my shoulders, and then being super disciplined about my time. I mean, yes, I did get up early, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, but I was training, 3 or 4 hours a day. So to have those right people around me, being disciplined, blocking off my time.
I'm picking up a theme. It's all about the people. It's all about the people, and that's for sure. So again, chatting with Robert Clinkenbeard, who is the author of Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. We're going to continue our conversation with Robert, talk about some of the podcasts he hosts, as well as, frankly, we'll talk about where he's from and why that is perhaps an advantage in coaching U.S. business owners. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back. We are continuing our conversation with Robert Clinkenbeard, who is the CEO of the Radix Group. And I teased it just before the break, but Robert, I think most of our listeners, I know I'm hearing from our listeners, they guessed you're from Scotland. And I'm curious, is that an advantage or disadvantage as you came here and you're now coaching so many U.S. business owners through your multiple entities?
I would say there's more advantages than disadvantages. I mean, obviously the accent helps me become more memorable. People definitely remember me. Sometimes I'll wear kilts to some of my events, so that's always pretty memorable. And then, as a lot of people know, Scottish are super hardworking. They're just really determined, somewhat slightly hard-headed. But I think that hard work ethic, I certainly try to display that in my coaching and trying to help others with that hard work.
It's great and certainly memorable for all of us. So, Robert, you host the podcast, which I know you've been doing for a little while. I believe it's a weekly conversations called The Commercial Landscaper. Tell us how that came to be, and tell us a little bit about the conversations you have on the show.
Yeah, I felt I have a message, and I'm surrounded by so many people within my network, whether it be in the green industry or other industries or part of EO. So I wanted to make sure that people heard all these great messages from these thought leaders, and I thought, what's the best way to do that? And obviously, podcast is a great, quick way of doing that, and just a quick deliverable message or a couple of takeaways. So yeah, I've definitely ramped up the podcast over the last few months, and I'm beginning to get some good traction.
That's exciting. Well, I hope our listeners will check it out. And while you're checking out The Commercial Landscaper, make sure you're clicking subscribe on that show, as well as wherever you're tuning in, click subscribe, rate, review, share, also here on Get Down to Business. But Robert, you have, as I said, merged all of the different hats that you wear, both being a business executive, but also being an Ironman. And that's the title of the book that's out there. So I don't want you to share all of the secrets, but tell us a little bit about some of the lessons that you propose for entrepreneurs that are out there.
Probably two big lessons would be, again, surrounding yourself with the right people. And in this case, I'm talking about more coaches, mentors, because, typical business owner is not an expert at everything, but find out where you're weak at. What are some of the things you need help on? Now, for me, it was financials. I was terrible at financials. So I quickly, early on, I brought in a fractional CFO to help us out. And it's the same with triathlons and Ironmen are terrible at swimming. So I brought in a swim coach, I brought in a bike coach. So try and figure out what are the areas that you need help in, because you're definitely not an expert, and lean on those experts. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest challenges. And then, every day in business or training for triathlons, you're going to come across challenging situations. So again, lean into those challenges, pick yourself back up. I would get injured, I would have some accidents, and it's the same in business. I would go through lawsuits, I would have key people leaving. So you're going to be hit with those. It's just a case of how you deal with that. And so I would just say lean into those challenges. There's always good things happen on the other side of fear. So lean into these challenges, learn from them, pick yourself back up, and continue on your journey.
Well, that's a lot of lessons. I'm not an Ironman, but I've run some marathons, and it's you learn a lot about yourself. So, Robert, final question: have you continued in 2020 and into 2021 training and competing?
I've got another half Ironman lined up for this year. I'll probably do an Ironman next year. Obviously, a little bit challenging with the travel, but my wife loves the destination races. So she wants to go abroad and do an Ironman.
Robert, where can people learn more about you?
Try the Radix Group, LLC.com, my website, or they can even email me directly at robert@theradixgroupllc.com, and happy to provide a free copy of my digital book. So, but yeah, happy to hear from people and answer the questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You've been listening to Get Down to Business. What a great bunch of conversations today. We'll be back next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 560, The Answer to Success. Let's get down to business.